As an additional video, I decided to go through one of your exercises with you to see if I could help you analyze how to write a program with classes and objects from the beginning. Now again, there will be those handfuls of people who will elect to go straight to the program, straight to the jugular, so to speak, without going through my previous videos and without reading the book. This may be more trouble than it's worth, so if you're going for the hunt for the answer number, that's not a good idea in practice to do this. But I want you to know that I did do program number 5, which will be my example in this video, myself. I got it to compile and work, so I have something that is successfully done. I decided to go ahead and type out the actual program on page 167. If you're visual and auditory, you'll figure this out. If not, I can't really help you either way. But I decided to break it up into the sentences. I literally typed this exactly as it's stated in your book on page 167 and see if we can start doing some analysis of how to get this program started. Alright, forgive me for reading to you, but it makes a difference in this video. Design a payroll class that has fields, those are your private data items, for an employee's name, ID number, hourly pay rate, and number of hours worked. Write the appropriate accessor and mutator methods and a constructor that accepts the employee's name and ID number as arguments. The class should also have a method that returns the employee's gross pay, which is calculated as the number of hours worked multiplied by the hourly pay, which we're all familiar with seeing. Now that's designing the payroll class. Then it says write a program, that's the main part, that demonstrates the class by creating a payroll object, asking the user to enter the data for an employee, so we're using the scanner input business. The program should display the amount of gross pay earned. Now I want to go through this analytically to make sure, as in the program process for writing programs, first of all we need to be sure that we understand as a group exactly what's being asked. Right off the bat, there are two sets of Java code being written, and again, not in a word processor. You must compile and run it. Java will not accept it, and don't try to give me any kind of baloney, garbage, hogwash about that. Yes, it will work. It will not. And I do these programs myself as well as assigning them to my students, so I know this very firsthand. You need to write a program for the payroll class first, which is without main, and then your second part is to write the program that demonstrates the class. And if you've read the book and or look at my videos, you understand how these are set up. So let's do some analysis here. I'm going to break this apart and see how I can do this video-wise. Alright, designing a payroll class. So basically I'm going to have to start with a code that starts, and I hope I can do this clearly. I'm not sure. I hope red works for people. If red causes color blindness or something, you can't read it, let me know. You're going to have something that says public class payroll as your opening statement. And your great big program is going to look like this one. Alright, your second program down here where it says demonstrates the class, you're going to have to write some kind of program that's got excuse me that has public class show payroll, or whatever you want to call it. And of course inside those braces your basic shell will have public static void main, and then your arguments that go with every Java program. So you're going to have that set up with, of course, the beginning and opening and closing braces for that program as well. So these are your shells, one for this first program right here, another one for the main program right here. Now I'll try to break this into pieces, and I'll do a little bit of stopping and starting my video, which will make things on your end suddenly pop on the screen. And of course the pause button can do that. You may end up in some cases playing monkey see monkey do and copying what I've done. But again, if you're solely, and again you'll get these emails that will pop up frequently during my video. I don't make these but once because I don't have the hours to tweak it. So I apologize for that once again. When you look at these videos, if you simply play the imitator or the spectator, again it will bite you as you try to do the other programs. You cannot procrastinate. because that will cause frustration on your part. You almost invariably will have some compile and syntax mistakes, as did I, and I programmed in Java for quite a while. And if you wait till Sunday night before a Monday due date, for example, then you've got to hope that when you send me a message saying my code will not work, why does it not work? Maybe a semicolon or a misspelled word or something, or capital or lowercase letter sensitivity. If you send it to me Sunday morning at 11 o'clock and I'm playing for church, you're not going to get the answer at 5 after 11, 5 minutes after you sent the message. So you cannot procrastinate. Otherwise, why are you in a computer programming course? I'm having to fuss and do my little preaching mini sermon a little bit here to be sure I emphasize that strongly enough. You have to work at it. There's no way around it. Alright, in any event. Alright, we're designing the payroll class first. Alright, you need 4 fields. You need the employee's name, the ID number, the hourly pay rate, and the number of hours worked. And again, through the magic of video, I'll get some of this stuff accomplished with you. Here's where I've created those variables, and I want to make this emphasis to help you out. We have fields. These fields will automatically be private in a class. Employee's name, ID number, hourly pay rate, and number of hours worked. And I wrote those names right here. Now, I did not use the camel case convention where I have lowercase letters. I'll show you why in just a minute. But where you have compound words, it is a good idea to use upper and lowercase letters. The downside of this is you've got to be careful in your spelling, in your typing, because Java is case sensitive. And again, if you do this in Word and give it to me and it comes out in Word and it doesn't compile, I'm not giving you full credit. In fact, I'll give you a lot of missed credit for it. You've got to use the Java compiler. That's what programming is about. I can't emphasize that too much. So here's employee name, which is a data type string, ID number, which is an integer, pay rate. It could be $5 an hour or $5.50 an hour, but more than likely it will be a decimal. So I would use double to take care of both the integer and the decimal possibilities. The hours worked could be the same way. You might work 40.5 hours instead of 40 hours. So I made mine double. Just make sure you're consistent with whatever you do here. So we've done this part, design a payroll class, and we have those fields defined. So I'll put that in red for right now. Hopefully that's going to make it a little bit of a parallel for you here. I'll move this out of the way for now. Alright, now write the appropriate accessor and mutator methods. That's basically when you see accessor and mutator, you're basically thinking about the get and set items. So if you're doing this analytically to use this for another program, when you're accessing information, you're not changing it, so you're using the get routines, get employee name, get ID number, get pay rate, get hours worked. The mutator is where you're going to change something or put something new in the memory of those variables. So we use the set routines right there. So if you're looking at some parallelism here with analyzing this just like you would a math word problem, I'm using the get routines when I'm dealing with accessor, and I'm using the set routines when I'm dealing with the mutators. And again, through the magic of video, I'll pop these in here for you, at least a couple of them. I'll start with set first, where you're putting it in memory. When you're using the set or the mutator methods, and again, you can name these by any method you want, bad choice of words, by any convention you want to, and I hope this yellow and red is clear for you on the screen. I apologize for these sudden colors, but I'm having to rush through videos with the inundation of meetings and other obligations at the college and 5 other classes besides just Java. I wrote the word set followed by employee name, the variable. I just do that for consistency of capitalization and stuff. It makes it easier. And I did the same thing for set pay rate. Now, because you're storing something in memory that's being passed in from the main program, I have to have some variable. I just used EN for employee name in this one. I used PR for pay rate. You don't have to. That just helps me remember things a little more easily. So this will give you, and you want to make sure both of these are void. The sets or the accessor method, the mutator methods are going to be with the word void. So you would do one for employee name, one for pay rate. You would do the same thing for the ID number and the hours worked. You just have to be careful right here when you're passing in the arguments in parentheses that when you do hours worked that I haven't written on this video, that you choose double right here. And when you're doing the one that says set ID number, that you're using int in this one. I hope this will get you started. for the accessor methods, the gets, I decided to do the other two. Forget, you're not forget, as in not remember. For the get methods, I simply wrote get hours worked so that you could possibly print that out if you needed it and to get the ID number. Again, the reason I didn't do the camel case in my variable names is so I could put the word get in lowercase letters. Just whatever you want to do. Java doesn't really care from a language compiling perspective. Just make sure your case sensitivity is consistent throughout. And that's why I encourage copy and paste with some care, especially if you're not a strong typist. And you got to go by the data type because you're returning something back to the main program. You need to use the word return. And anytime you use the word return in a method, you've got to put the data type. In the case of hours worked, it's double. In the case of the ID number, it's int. And that's consistent with what's typed as string int double up in this part of the program as well. So be sure you have some consistency between what you have here and what you have right here as far as the data type is concerned. And of course you'll have 4 set methods instead of just 2. You'll have 4 get methods instead of just those. Now it also mentioned a constructor. Now again, the constructor, if you recall from the earlier video, a constructor is a method that has the exact name as the class name. The class name in this case is Payroll class. So I want to design something that's a method that has the same name as the class, and the name of the class is Payroll. You can put these methods in any order. You don't have to put the sets first and the gets next and the constructor first. It's totally up to you personally as to how you do it. And again, through the magic of video, here in the green is the constructor. Now again, don't get public payroll mixed up with public class payroll, which is the name of the big Java class. This is the constructor. I got the word public and the same name as the class itself. Now it says in that constructor, it says that accepts the employee name and the ID number as arguments. The arguments are what you have in the parentheses right here. So inside there, I would put in and I'm fudging a little bit right here. You would put in for the arguments the employee name and the ID. Now I'm not putting the names for the private variables, but I'm putting the ones I'm passing in, just like I did up here. I'll put in some string for the employee name, some ID variable for the ID name, and then I'll assign, in this case, EN, employee name, to the private variable, and the ID number, which is an integer, to the ID number variable. That will be your constructor right there. So hopefully this helps out as far as seeing how this is a constructor that accepts the employee name and ID number as arguments. I'm doing this very rampantly as far as making a video for you, but I hope this is helping out. Alright? Takes care of that part. The class should also have a method that returns the employee's gross pay, and in that case, here we go, method returns employee gross pay. Alright, so when I'm writing that one, and again I'll put that inside the braces, but I'll put that down here closer to the directions from a video standpoint where you can see it. Let me look at this again. The class of a method that returns the employee's gross pay, and they tell you how to calculate it. So in that particular case, I'll actually type this one out for you from scratch. You could write in public, and you can call it whatever you want to. I'm going to call it pay earned. Again, nothing's being passed in because I'm returning a value. The keyword is returned right there. Because I'm returning something, I've got to put the data type, and since I'm multiplying hours worked by hourly rate, that's probably going to be a dollars and cents answer, which would be a decimal. So I'll call that type double. I'll put my little opening and closing braces in there, and this will be a part of the main program. And because it said the word return, I put the word return. And believe it or not, I could do something. I could do a couple of things here. It's totally what you want to do, and I'm going to show you both ways to see which way you like better. And you pick the one you like, and I'll show you what I like. I could put something that says double pay equals pay rate. And the reason, and you may be saying to me, how can I use the private variables? Once I'm inside the class itself with all the methods, I can go private variable crazy. It's just the outside program where I can't use them. So I'm going to write pay rate times hours worked. And again, the reason I'm doing that is because pay rate and hours worked, zoom, are up here in my private variables, and that's perfectly okay to use those. And I've multiplied those two numbers together, stored them in the word pay, and I could put right down here return pay, and that's perfectly okay. An even shorter way of doing this is not to deal with this extra variable. And instead of having this double pay business right here, I could just say return pay rate times hours worked and make it even shorter. And of course, this routine would be a part of my main program, so I'll put that up here. And again, you can put these different methods in any order that you like personally, but it's going to be a part of this big public class payroll program. Here are my private variables. Here are my public mutator methods, the sets. There will be 4 of them actually instead of 2. I've got my get hours, 2 methods. I'll have 2 more. Not only get hours worked and get ID number, I'll also have get pay rate and get employee name. I've got the constructor, which has the same name as the class, both of them named payroll. And I've got my routine that calculates the pay earned, and that little extra brace in this document is on the bottom page. Again, I'm doing mine in Word because it makes it larger for those of you who have bifocal eyes like mine to be able to see my video. You do not, again, emphasizing way too much, but I will, do not submit these in Word. You have to put them in a Java compiler, compile them, run them, execute them. Alright, and that class is already taken care of. So when you actually have this in your Java compiler, what will happen, this is very small, and I'm using Eclipse as my Java. I actually have public class payroll, and I've got the entire program printed out right here. Now when I run it, nothing's going to happen because I have to have a main, and there's not main in this list. So I have to have that to complete my work. So here's where the part 2 of the exercise number 5 comes in. Write a program that demonstrates the class. And I'll do that by writing something, for example, that says show payroll. Now here's where it might be a little bit tricky possibly. It says ask the user to enter the data. So we're going back to chapter 2 where we use the scanner class, and that's why I wanted to go ahead and show you this program all the way around. The program should display the amount of gross pay earned. So in doing this routine, the first thing we have to do in main is we have to define a new payroll worker. Now I'm going to do this again, sort of a copy and paste method on my screen. The way I do this is I put the name of the class, the word new, the name of the class, the word new, name of the class again, a set of parentheses, and the other set of parentheses. And I'm calling the name of my object by the word worker. There's my general syntax right there. Payroll is the data type, for lack of a better word, the class. Worker is the name of my object. And then because, as with the case of all classes, whenever a class object is created, the computer goes into payroll and sees if there is a constructor in there. Now I do have a constructor. This particular constructor, if you remember, if I can find it, yes, in the green, allows me to send in the arguments for the person's name and their ID number. So what I'm sending into the program, in my example, is the word sysc, a string that's in quotes, and an ID number 12345. Now again, as you remember, what will happen in the computer's memory is as follows. This new payroll worker declaration for that object will set up an object called worker. See if I can do this, make this a little cleaner for you. And there will be empty boxes for employee name, ID number, pay rate, and hours worked. But because I have a constructor that has sysc and 12345 being passed to it, what will happen, it will go to the payroll constructor, back up here in green. It will place the word sysc right here for the value of EN, and the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 as the value for ID, and then it will take the word sysc and store it as employee name. It'll take the number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and store it as the ID number, so that after this constructor has been executed, sysc and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 will be put in the class object's private variables. All this one sentence takes care of all this. I hope that helps out. Now what they ask you to do next is to ask the user to enter the data for an employee. And I could ask the user for the name, I could ask the user for the ID and all that. I did not, because the constructor, you could if you wanted to, and I would be perfectly fine with that. But just remember that when you're doing this program, when you're asking for input, remember from the previous chapter that in Java we have to do that through a scanner class. So don't forget that at the beginning of the program I have to have this statement called import java.util.scanner to allow that data to be entered into the computer. So I've got to have that at the beginning of my main program, show payroll, right at the front, even before public class. Now, in order to ask for this information, I will need, and I've got the name and the ID number. If you especially wanted to ask the user for a name, even though we're not right here, we could do that by having this set up. Actually, there'll be one more sentence. This sentence we need to have anyway. We've got to have not only the utility, the java.util.scanner in there, but we've also got to have the statement that you've already seen before that is called scanner keyboard. And again, remember, we use scanner keyboard if we need to have input from the keyboard being typed in. If you were asking for the person's name, you would declare a variable. In this case, I just did name. You would ask the question, and you would use this thing called keyboard.nextLine. Of course, I'm not doing that in this program because we've got that built into the constructor, but you can. Same thing for the ID number. So for the pay rate, I might have some information like this. Again, thank you for bearing with me on this very primitive kind of video, but at least it will help you out. I would declare a local variable called pay as double, since it's going to deal with decimals. I would ask them for the pay rate, and from the keyboard, whatever was typed in would go in a variable called pay. Now that has not gone into the class yet, because remember that while pay is the variable right here in my main program, I haven't placed it yet into pay rate. And I cannot put this is wrong. This is wrong. I may emphasize this is wrong. You cannot do this. The compiler will say, no, that's private. You can't touch it. You cannot. No, cannot do this. You have to pass it in later, and I'll show you how to do that in just a second. All right. I've got the person's name, the ID. I've asked them for the hours, the hourly rate, pay rate. And if I want to ask them for the hours, it will be something very similar, because again, I'm getting this from the keyboard. Now I'm having to assume that you've got the basis of chapter 2 down pat, because if we keep going backwards and backwards and backwards, we'll never get through the course, and we'll sit here and wallow in chapter 2 forever. All right, to get this information in, let me scoot this up a little bit so it's all together. To get the hours, these are very similar packets, so to speak. You would declare a local variable for hours as an integer, or double. If you want to choose double, you can choose double right there. I think I did that, so I probably need to be consistent and choose double right here, since I did in the earlier program. I think I called it, did I call it double? Yeah, I did. Yeah. Okay. Talking to myself. So I'd ask for the hours worked, and they would be stored right here. Now, how in the world does this stuff get put into the class down here? How in the world do these get in there? Well, you've got it. I've got to call up a method. So inside this, and I'm going to scoot on down, inside, what I have to do with this pay and with these hours is I've got to put that stuff in there. Now, to get that stuff set in place, I'm not getting it, I'm setting it. What I have to do is I have to put the name, bear with me, the name of the object, which is worker, dot, and then pick the method that does this for me, and that is called set pay rate. Now I've got to pass something into the computer. I'm going to put the word pay right here. The reason I'm putting pay is because the pay contains the information that I typed in at the keyboard. Sorry about that. So if I send that value, whatever I type into the keyboard, to this method, that pay value, I hope I don't make you dizzy here, that pay value will go into PR and eventually into pay rate. Think as if you're passing an offering plate in a church. I pass something to this girl, she passes it to another girl, and that girl passes it to a guy, and now that's how the information gets transferred. Almost like spreading gossip. This one tells this person, this one tells the next person. Similarly, if I want to get the hours transferred over into the object variable called workers, I would do worker.set hours worked. This is the method that I did earlier. And I would pass in the word hours that I'm picking up from what I did up in this routine. Unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, there's a trade-off when I'm doing these videos. If I make it really small so everything's on the screen at once, I have people that can't see it. If I make it really large so people can see it, I can't show the whole program at one time. So I'm danged if I do and danged if I don't. I don't want to use bad words here. Alright, so that information, whatever they typed in for pay, and I'll just make up something, $7.56 an hour, and whatever it was for hours worked, I'll put 40. Doesn't matter if it's decimal or not, it will take it. They will now be stored in there. So now all I have to do is display the amount of gross pay earned. I'm going to display everything just for education purposes here. And again, all this stuff is inside of my main routine. I've declared the object, instantiated the class's object. I've got scanner keyboard because I'm typing something in from the keyboard. I've got my constructor going on right here. Sound like a cooking show, don't I? I've got these hours being input. I've assigned it to the worker object, which I did right here in the constructor. That took care of the name and the ID. I've assigned the pay rate and the hours worked through these methods. Now, to display the information, remember again what I cannot do. I cannot, and this is wrong, so if anybody's looking at me, listen to me literally, don't start typing. This is wrong. I cannot print out the pay rate like this. These are private variables, so it will say, no, you can't. You cannot. You can't even do worker.payrate. There are a lot of things you can do wrong if you're not careful. You cannot do this. No, wrong, incorrect. The only way you can do it is through the methods. So if I want to print out the information, I might say something like, this employee is, and this is just regular, this is just plain old vanilla flavored system.out.println right now. But let's say I wanted to print out the employee's name. What I have to do right here is go to system.out.println, and I'll use the name of the object, worker, dot, and how do I get the information? I choose the get employee name method. So I've got the set of parentheses for the method and the set of parentheses right here for the system.out.println. So there are two sets altogether, a total of 4, ended with a semicolon. And that statement right there will tell the computer, go into that class for worker called Payroll, and that was in the other program, not in main, but in the other program, and get that information. What was I doing here? I'm going through this so fast I'm probably making you guys dizzy. I wanted to get the employee name, so the Java will automatically go to that class definition. It will find get employee name, which is not on this list, and it will return the employee name. And you would do the same thing for getting the ID number and all that. What about that pay rate? Oh my gosh, it said to display the amount of gross pay earned. Remember that we did something in one of the methods that we created that gets that calculated. The name of the object is worker dot. I know there's going to be something with parentheses, and I've got these parentheses to end the system.out.println. What in the world goes right there? Let's go up and look. I did something called pay earned that did the math automatically. So if I call up the method called pay earned, there it is again right there, pay earned, which is associated with that worker, what the computer will do is it will go to the pay earned method and it will return the result. Now, it will not return the two values. It will do the arithmetic. It will multiply those two numbers together and return that to the place where it was called up. So if I got pay rate times hours worked, it will go right here. Because of pay earned, it will go right here. It will grab those two values, do the math, 40 times 756, whatever I typed in when I typed it in at the input level. It will do the math, return that answer, and print it out. And as you'll see in the actual Java program right here, when I move it across, and here's my show payroll, here's main right here. When I actually have this in here, this is what will print out. And I'll actually run this for you to let you see what happens. I think I already have run it. And there's my prompt at the very bottom of the screen that has employee name. I'll put Michael right there. It's in very light letters. You may not be able to see it. And actually, in this one, I should have let the computer handle it myself. Let me start this all over again. Bear with me. I'm going to escape from this and take out a couple of items that we don't need and resave this. Bear with me just a second. And I'll try this again. Let me run this program one more time and let you see what it does. Got some errors, huh? Hold on, I'll get this cleaned up. Here we go, I've got it. Alright, when I run this program, it will ask me for the pay rate. Now notice I was not asked for the name or the ID because that's taken care of by the constructor. So my pay rate was, what did I have in there, 756, something like that. I type that in, no dollar symbol. It will ask me at the bottom of the screen for the hours worked. That's 40. And very rapidly, it printed out everything. It prints out this employee is, there's the get employee name method, there's the get ID method, the get pay rate, get hours worked, pay earned. So it's printing out sysc and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which was part of that constructor, the 756 and the 40 that I typed in, and then the 30240. We're not worrying about the dollars and cents format. We'll do that later. Hopefully this will give you a good idea of how to do your first class program. And again, if you have questions, you can let me know.